Pretty boring offseason for Arkansas basketball. Nothing interesting really happened. Not the most one of the most insane college basketball stories I feel like of the past 4 years. Christian and Nick here with JC Jackson Collier, who covers Arkansas for Rivals. JC, thank you so much for joining us. Obviously, a ton happened with Calipari coming over from Kentucky and Musselman leaving after stringing together some really strong seasons. Then just a nightmare season. Now you have a whole new roster except for TB and a new coach. How would you describe like what has transpired at Arkansas and how high are the expectations for this season?
So I just look back at like the ending period of last season and then going into the off season. The entire thing was a whirlwind, right? Because there had been rumors and speculation that Musselman was looking for a way out as early as January or February. And, maybe that led to some of the issues on the court and the team not performing up to expectations. I mean, it was first losing season that Arkansas had since 2008 or 2009, I believe. And so out of nowhere, off season happens and there's a lot of speculation. Oh, he's leaving. Oh, he's staying. He's linked to SMU. He's linked to Louisville. He's linked to any number of jobs. DePaul got thrown in there. Washington got thrown in there. And once all of that kind of died down a little bit, it's like, oh, well, he's not leaving then. He missed out on all these jobs. We'll have Eric Musselman again for next year. We'll see how he builds the roster. Even had a transfer commit in Josh Cohen from UMass ready to come in, had his 2 incoming freshmen signed. Then USC comes calling. He takes the USC job, and Arkansas has to scratch plans and completely rebuild. And, I even put out a tweet when that all happened. I was like, oh, I'm not worried about USC. And the only reason I wasn't worried about USC was that he had struck out for 5 other jobs. Why would he take this one? Why would they hire him? Ended up not being the case. He got hired, and the whole coaching search was just bizarre. I tried to cover it as closely as I could, missed on Chris Beard, missed on Jerome Tang. And then there's a lot of noise surrounding Will Wade. Will Wade wanted the job. And then, you get leaked candidates from the Arkansas Democrat Gazette, the local paper in Arkansas, saying that, oh, well, they're interviewing Darrell Walker from UALR and they're interviewing Chris Jans from Mississippi State. And then out of nowhere, the very next day, John Calipari. The whole thing is just bizarre. It was insanity. It was the wildest thing I've covered in my time covering the Razorback basketball team.
Yeah, well, let's dive into this this roster and the personnel. I mean, this is the definition of a team and roster that, we got a new coach in the portal era. I mean, only one guy coming back in Brazil, and then just filling in the pieces everywhere else. He brought a few guys with him from Kentucky, Thiero, Wagner, Big Z. But let's talk about, just the guys coming over from Kentucky, the new guys coming in, the freshmen especially, and just what can you tell us about those guys?
Well, I think, it was huge that Cal was able to bring some pieces from his Kentucky roster because I think that helps with a little bit of continuity. Even though this is a completely new team, completely new location, completely new program, having those 3 guys, plus some, I think, walk-on pieces as well from Kentucky, I think that helps because it's not just, oh, hey, these guys know the system. These guys are familiar with each other. And I think team chemistry goes a long way as well as, knowing a certain system in college basketball. I think that is priceless to have when you're talking about building a new program. On top of that, I think returning Trevor Brazile is huge because he knows what it's like at Arkansas. I mean, again, completely new staff, completely new roster, but Arkansas is still Arkansas. The fan base is still the fan base, and Brazile is kind of that the one thing connecting Razorback fans to this is an Arkansas team somewhat. But just going back to your question about the Kentucky guys, Adu Thiero he was a massive addition for this team because he fills this really good, much needed role in all of college basketball, but especially in this system where he's this hybrid kind of wing forward spot, right? He's trying to develop an outside shot and be more of a floor spacer, more of a threat from the perimeter. But, at 6'7" or however tall he is, with his really long wingspan and his great athleticism, he's a great on-ball defender, really versatile. He can probably guard 2 through 4 and occasionally a small ball 5. He's been able to knock down some shots in practice over the summer and heading into the fall. So I think that might be the most important addition that John Calipari made, was Adou Thiero. Big Z, you have that raw talent that Kentucky fans saw so much last year, where he's the floor spacer, the kind of unicorn type of player. And one thing that we're seeing at Arkansas so far, at least from rumblings in the practices and such, is that he's been able to be healthy. He's not having any health issues like he did when he first came to the States from Kentucky. I heard from multiple Kentucky friends who cover the program over there that part of his issues in coming to the court, or coming back to the court after he got, ruled eligible, he was never really fully healthy for whatever reason. And so his health is better. He's gaining weight. He's gaining strength. And he's been able to, stay throughout the course of an offseason and put in that time, put in that effort. So I think you're going to see a much more refined product in Big Z. He's still extremely talented, obviously, but probably will be more refined given a full offseason. And I think he's going to play better given, having extra weight at his size. I think that's a really crucial aspect. He's looked to be a pretty solid rim defender for this team as well, to pair with Trevin Brazile and Jonas Adou in the post, which, that could be one of the premier rim defending front courts in the SEC or the country. We'll see what the rest of the front court dynamic looks like. How do they defend outside of just blocking shots? How do they rebound? All that sort of stuff. But as far as rim protection goes, looks pretty formidable. Everybody is talking about DJ Wagner, though. This is a guy that was super hyped up out of high school for good reason. He was a 5-star prospect. He had a ton of offers. It was between Kentucky and Louisville. There is a whole recruiting war over him. Landed at Kentucky. All things considered, had a pretty decent freshman campaign, but obviously not what people were expecting, I don't think. I think having such lofty expectations, even though he didn't have a bad freshman year, people wanted and expected more. So he has a chance and a change of scenery to, show, hey, I am what I was coming out of high school, and I will produce at that level. He's trying to develop an outside shot as well. He's trying to become more of a true pass-first point guard who can score instead of a scoring point guard. Those roles are completely different. I think he's trying to buy into that role a little bit more and develop into that role a little bit more. Where if he's playing the facilitator role who takes open shots, I think that bodes much better for Arkansas than if he is, finding open shots for himself. But early reports from practice just indicate that he's been a really good leader so far. He's been vocal. He's kind of taken on that role. He and John L. Davis have taken on the leadership role. And I think that really speaks volumes to DJ's growth and how seriously he's taking his role as well.
Absolutely. The rim protection that you spoke of is ridiculous with Big Z, what they do, and Brazile. And you speak on DJ Wagner. Something interesting to me about him last year is Dillingham, Shepard, Reeves were just on. First of all, they were all incredible, but they were all similar in that they were guys who wanted to play with pace and shoot a bunch of threes. And I think Wagner just kind of, even though he kept his starting position, I agree that a change of scenery could really unlock him in just more time in college. Just the talent is real, and coming to a roster where he doesn't have 2 lottery picks, waiting for their turn to go in off the bench. I think that'll be big for him. And you speak of Nelly Davis, obviously most known for his performance in the Final Four run 2 years ago, but last year he was even better. I know he didn't play great in that game against Northwestern, but he won them a lot of games on the stretch. He is a bucket getter, and he's older, and he's fantastic. So my question is, you mentioned that they're both been kind of the leaders of this team so far. How do you expect Davis and Wagner to play off each other. And do you expect Davis to kind of definitely be like an off guard to Wagner, or do you expect it to kind of be like 2 point guards? And also, where does Boogie Fland come in the mix here? How many minutes do you think he'll be able to get right off the bat?
So I think that's a great question, because that's one of the big talking points from the Arkansas fan base and even amongst us as basketball reporters. Like, how exactly does this backcourt fit? There's a lot of talent there. There's kind of blended roles between them. I think when you look at a Coach Cal system, he loves running 2 guards regardless. I think you've seen that for years now. So when you look at a starting lineup this season, I could potentially see a John L. Davis and a DJ Wagner starting side by side, where, DJ is more of the prototypical facilitating point guard. John L. Davis playing kind of an off guard role, but in situations where you need John L. to go in isolation situations, he's your bucket getter. And I think that's something that most basketball teams need and try to have, is like a designated bucket getter. And Arkansas has that in John L. Davis. And, pairing him with DJ Wagner, I think, works twofold, because John L. won't be forced to find something every possession. And he's really good at moving without the ball. He's great at cutting, finding open spaces, and he's really a high percentage 3-point shooter, especially off the catch. So I think putting him off ball beside Wagner will only help that. And then plus that allows Wagner to kind of fully buy into his point guard role. Being able to break down defenders, draw the wing defender off of John L. and pass it back out to him, or do whatever he needs to do. And then how does Boogie Fland fit into all this? I think he's going to be in that similar – he's kind of between the two of them in his role. Like, I envision him coming off the bench, at least at the beginning of the season, might start later in the season, but he is like a true scoring point guard. I think he can facilitate really at a high level. He's a really good shooter, and he can go get his own. So he's kind of the best of both worlds between DJ and Davis as well. So I think he could come in and honestly replace either one of them, give either one of them a spell. So you have 3 guards kind of rotating among 2 spots. I don't think you see much drop off at all there.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. I mean, I think this offense is going to be great, undoubtedly. I mean, there's so many talent, and Calipari is a great offensive coach. I guess where my question is, and where some uncertainty lies, is on the defensive side of the ball. And let me say this before I ask this question. I love the versatility of Thiero, Adu. I mean, even Brazil. Like, there's just great length. I mean, it'd be hard to not be a good defensive team, in my opinion. But Calipari hasn't had top 30 defense since 2019. So, I mean, it's been five years. And from 2014 to 2019, he was in the top 30 every single season. So do you think that this is the season he gets back with Arkansas to being a good defensive team? And what will that take?
Yeah, I definitely think they'll be a good defensive team. I don't know if it'll be top 30 good. I think top 45, top 50 good. But if you pair that with like a top 20, top 25 offense, that bodes well for like the direction of the program and what they hope to accomplish this year. But I think, I think it'll be a good defense. Part of that is because, last year's defense, it was pretty bad. The one of the only bright spots, especially on like the wing defenders and then the backcourt, was DJ Wagner. He's pretty solid on-ball defender, had his lapses just like everybody else did on last year's team, but all things considered is a pretty solid on-ball defender. Obviously, we already talked about versatility of Thiero. I think 2 of the biggest pieces that go towards how good defensively this team will be, obviously, we already mentioned Thiero, but the emergence of Carter Knox and Billy Richmond. Billy Richmond might be the best defender on this team. He's very versatile, very long, really good at defending on ball, really has great lateral quickness. Another guy who can guard 2 through 4. So I really like what he brings to the table defensively. So if he is college ready, if he is ready, which, based on Calipari's history of inserting freshmen and, especially top 25 ranked freshmen, I think he will be. And then adding to that, you have Carter Knox, who he's just massive. He's a specimen. He's like 6'7", 6'8". He's well into the 200-pound mark. I mean, he's just built very, very physically. And again, another guy who can guard multiple positions. He's probably not fast enough to drop down and guard the 2, depending on who they're playing against. But you have plenty of other guys who can do that. He can guard 3, 4, and also small ball 5. Very physical. He can get you rebounds. I think the biggest factor into how this team will be viewed defensively and how they end up ultimately performing defensively is just how versatile they are and how that versatility translates. Obviously, on paper, they look like they can guard multiple positions, but can they actually do it in a game situation? I think that's going to be the big question. If they can, very good defensive team. If they can't, then it might be another struggle year.
Identity-wise, Kentucky saw a little shift last year. Nick has been talking about kind of the downturn in defensive Cal, but like being the number 1 3-point shooting team obviously was personnel driven with having Reed Shepherd and Dillingham, but a team that played faster. Do you expect that pace to stay similar in this move to Arkansas? Do you think guards like Wagner and Fland and Davis are going to kind of anchor a similar system to the way Kentucky played last year?
Yeah, no, I don't know if it'll be like one of the fastest teams in the country, but I think it's going to be a fast tempo, probably top 25 in tempo. They're going to push pace. They're going to try to get out and run. They're going to try to create lob threats. They're going to try to shoot transition threes. I don't think they're going to shoot a ton of threes. They'll be above average in the 3-point volume marker, probably, if I had to guess. They don't have a ton of like proven volume shooters on this roster, so I don't know where the volume is going to come from. You're going to have to get a lot of volume from Knox and Fland to really kind of push that. But tempo-wise, absolutely expect them to push because they're pretty athletic in multiple positions, and I feel like they're going to try to utilize that to their advantage.
Yeah, for sure. This isn't a question, just more so just throwing this out there, just to back off Chris, what he said. I think Calipari just embraced modern basketball last season. It was the fastest he's ever played in his tenure at Kentucky at 12th. The previous 5 seasons, on average, it was 217. So, I mean, giant uptick there. And, Arkansas has the depth and all the pieces to be another fast tempo team, top 15 in the country for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. 100% agree with that. And I think hiring Kenny Payne back, I think really boosts what this team can do in the front court, because I know everybody's going to point to like, oh, what Kenny Payne did at Louisville. He wasn't a good head coach there. But the fact remains, whenever Kenny Payne was alongside Cal at Kentucky, they produced some of the best big men in college basketball. Obviously, they recruited some of the best big men out of high school, but you still have to develop those guys, and you still have to put them in a position to succeed. And I think that adding Kenny Payne to this staff allows the post guys, the front court guys, to contribute at a high level. And talking about embracing modern basketball, there might not be a too big system for Cal this year. That's kind of been the thing: 2 guards and 2 bigs. We've seen that with Cal over the years. Will that happen this year? Probably in small spurts, but I don't envision a 2 big lineup being a regular occurrence this year. So you're going to really have to rely on the development of those big guys and hope that they can win one-on-one matchups. And, honestly, I think having Kenny Payne that they can.
When you talk about 2 big lineups, my brain is thinking, I consider Trevon Brazile big. And I'm going to expand this question to include the fact that I loved Trevon Brazile a couple seasons ago, like that beginning of the season, I think it was Maui. He showed just some insane upside with some of his dunks, his 3-point shooting, his kind of just poise out there, his rim protection. Like a guy with that athleticism, with that switchability, with that shooting ability, with that shot blocking ability is just oozing NBA upside. And what I want to ask about is, what is his health level at? Do you think last year he was kind of just dragged down from the dysfunction of Arkansas, the team, or was he just not healthy? Is he a guy that you think could make this huge jump and have this, even if it's not a monster scoring year, where he has the monster jump in terms of how he's perceived as a talent, and if he's a guy can be an NBA lottery pick, and if not him, is there a lottery pick on this team, do you think? Because that's been a staple of Cal and his success at the college level is he's had just an unreal record with these NBA guys. And obviously there's high recruits on this team and there's a lot of talent, but there's no consensus lottery pick by any means on this Arkansas roster. So do you think Brazil can be that guy? And if not, who do you think will be the highest drafted player from this team?
Yeah, I think there are probably 3 guys I have my eye on that could possibly be that. And I think Brazil is one of them, but it's like probably the biggest jump. I think, so to answer your first question, last year, he was battling some injuries, but I think he was played in a completely wrong position for him to succeed last year. Eric Musselman tried to make him into a hybrid wing where he was creating shots off the bounce and playing strictly on the perimeter. I feel like Trevin Brazil is more of a true, stretch 4. He needs to be pick and pop, pick and roll, and taking perimeter shots and being a rim runner threat. Mm-hmm. He doesn't need to be worrying about breaking down a defender off the perimeter and scoring off the bounce. So I think he was not put in a position to succeed last year, plus the nagging injuries. His health is a lot better. His buy-in is at an all-time high, and I think the system is going to put him in a position to succeed more this year, given his athleticism, given his rim running ability, given his ability to knock down perimeter shots. Given his age and injury history, even if he has a really strong season, I don't necessarily envision him rocketing all the way up to a lottery pick. He could be like a late first rounder, maybe early 20s to late 30s or late 20s. But that's probably the longest shot. From there, I think, Boogie Fland, if he has a really strong freshman campaign, he could be a lottery pick. A lot of people are talking about the class as a whole, and it could be fairly weak. I don't know. I haven't looked at the draft boards across like all that in depth at all. Just a couple of people I've talked to said it's a weak class and used that to justify moving Boogie Fland up a little bit, depending on his success this season, which if you're a 5-star point guard in a John Calipari system, it makes sense. You're going to be put in positions to succeed. You're going to be relied upon. And if you perform, you should be a lottery pick. The dark horse I have kind of for the lottery position would be Adou Thiero, because I think if he really does come in and he shoots at a high clip from the 3-point line, if he shoots 35% on higher volume from 3 this year, I think he could be a lottery pick with his size, with his defensive versatility, with his athleticism. If you add to that the ability to knock down perimeter jump shots, I think he could be a lottery pick.
Yeah, for sure. I think Thiero is just oozing with upside, and he's the true X factor of this Arkansas team. Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. I think he was a little just underrated last year because of it was a guard-centric team, and, you didn't get a ton of minutes. It was kind of just rotating with like Justin Edwards, who kind of appeared to be similar. Justin Edwards went undrafted, by the way, which I thought was wild. I still think he has a lot of upside. But yeah, I agree. He could definitely be an X factor. I think that's it. Thank you so much for joining us, JC. There's it's a new era in Arkansas basketball for sure. And we'll see if the thing that I'm most interested in is considering how good Musselman was in the tournament those last few years, and because of how much NIL money's been pumped into and how much of a splash hire this was, what the patience level will be if this team could definitely be great, but what if it's not? Like, I wonder what how much time Calipari has to build this at Arkansas. But
I think fans are understanding and they'll be pretty patient. I think at the end of the day, as long as he wins games in the regular season, because that was one critique, even while Muss was making the NCAA tournament runs, was he didn't win enough in the regular season, especially in the SEC. So, I think if Cal does well enough, he finishes, like if he wins 11, 12 SEC games this year, even if it's just 10, I think that buys him some good favor. And you make the NCAA tournament if you win 9, 10 SEC games anyway. So you make the NCAA tournament, you get past the first round, and you win 9 or 10 conference games, he'll be fine.
Cool. Well, still think there's still a very high ceiling, of course, when he is the coach and with this much talent.
Absolutely.
So we'll be excited to see what happens. Thanks again for joining us, JC, and hope you guys have a great season.
Absolutely. Really enjoyed it. Thanks for having me on, guys.